I gotta be honest, minimalism didn't come easy to me. There are parts of it that are really hard. And when I first started doing declutters, I felt like I was constantly stuck. And what I needed was probably to declutter just like a higher percentage of the declutters, like decluttering half or more of my stuff rather than like the 10% I was doing. But also I needed that change in mindset. I needed that boost of motivation to get me through to really change how I saw my stuff and my life. And until I did that, I was just spinning my wheels. But I've got to say, these 5 concepts really made such a difference for me in my pursuit of minimalism, in improving my quality of life, in giving me the motivation to declutter and to minimize, and getting me closer to where I actually wanted to be. So I thought I would just share these ideas with you in case they can help you out too. Also, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Aylin, and I make videos on simple living, minimalism, and building an empowering mindset. If any of those topics interest you, I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button below. I also just want to mention, if you're a regular viewer here, or if you're new to this community, I so appreciate your presence here because it's really had a profound impact on me. I recently posted a video about how I basically blew up my life and started over. I'll link that video above and below in case you want to watch it. And I kind of put off sharing that video and all that personal information, but I'm ultimately so glad that I shared it because it was shocking how many of you commented and shared your own experiences, and hearing your thoughts about what's genuinely going on in your lives and how it affects you. It really touched me. And there were so many comments actually that I just could not reply to all of them. But I just wanted to say thank you if you commented. I just hope you realize that it made me feel less alone. I don't know, it just really struck me how much this channel has become a little group of friends, and it just means so much. And I'm so grateful that you're here, even if you don't comment too. Like, I appreciate your presence here. I always end my videos, thank you for spending this little bit of time with me. And it's because honestly, I think time is the most precious commodity. So the fact that any of you are listening and then interacting with me and helping me learn and grow, I'm so grateful. You're the reason why I keep going with this channel and carve out that time in my life to do it. It's because you all make me think and push forward and grow. So thanks again. I guess I'll stop talking about that and get into the topic of today's video. So the first concept that I want to share with you today that really changed my mindset around minimalism was a concept from Fumio Sasaki's book, Goodbye Things. And one question he asks is, what if you started from scratch? What if you lost everything in some kind of a disaster or had everything stolen and you truly had to start over as far as your belongings? How much would you really need? What would be the first things that you would need to buy? And what are the things that maybe you could get by without? I think sometimes it's so easy to get attached to our belongings and to not realize that actually, if we had to start over, we could probably survive. Like, maybe we wouldn't have as many options. Maybe in some ways we'd have to be creative with our stuff or thrifty in some ways, but ultimately we'd probably be okay. And I think sometimes having more stuff around ourselves makes us feel safer. Like if something goes wrong, we have a safety net. But I think sometimes that safety net is actually an illusion because society encourages us to purchase and buy and purchase some more. But ultimately, if we had to start from scratch, we'd probably be okay. It might take a little time to get all of the essentials, but the essentials might be fewer things than you actually think. I just think back to times when I've moved across the country, or the time where I spent 6 months abroad living in Copenhagen in college. Some of those times I had to kind of start from scratch and I didn't have much with me. And for the first chunk of some of those moves, I lived very minimally and I was not in want. And so I think that's just a reminder that sometimes we actually don't need as much as we think we do. So when you are decluttering or you're thinking about making a purchase, just think back to that idea. Like, what if I started from scratch? Would this thing be a top priority? Probably not. And maybe I don't need to keep it or buy it. Also, if this topic interests you, I think maybe next week or sometime soon, I'm coming out with a video about my time studying abroad in Copenhagen and how I did live a far more extreme minimalist life and some of the ways I lived that way. And so once that video is out, I'll be sure to link that above and below. But I think it's helpful to think back to those times, maybe even in your own life when you lived with less, and what that felt like and strategies you used to live that way. Another concept that's helped me live with less is remembering that more belongings means more decisions and more decision fatigue. Having more belongings makes you have to make more decisions about what to wear, which item to use. I hear a lot about decision fatigue these days, so let's go back to the basics. I'll also link some resources and citations in the description box below for what I'm about to talk about. It's been estimated that Americans make about 35,000 decisions a day, and there's a growing body of research that actually shows having more decisions, it can affect how well you're able to control your behavior and make smart decisions in your life. So it can have real ramifications. In case you don't know, decision fatigue has been defined as the impaired ability to make decisions and control behavior as a consequence of repeated acts of decision making. So basically, if you want to make sure that you're making the best decisions you can in your life and engaging in behaviors that are right for you in the long run, reducing your number of decisions might actually help with that. And I personally think that stuff creates a lot more decisions throughout your days. So just consider how your stuff might be reduced to simplify your life. A third principle that's helped me is to think of your nearby store as a storage facility for you. And I can't remember where I first heard this. It might have been even like another YouTube channel. I actually think I've heard it in a few places. So I'm just going to acknowledge here, it's not like an original concept from me, but I love the idea of the store as your own personal storage facility, because then it reduces how much you have that like hoardy mindset where you want to keep things or where you want to like over purchase to have those things around. So often these days, it's easy to just hop over to the store and grab something or even have it delivered to your own home. I feel like, again, it's that human tendency to feel safer when you have more stuff around you. But if you can kind of quench that thirst for safety by remembering, okay, if I really need something, I can just run to the store and get it, I think it just helps reduce that itch for more stuff. A fourth concept that's been helpful to me is that clutter has been linked with worse mental and physical health. I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from one article I read. Clutter can make us feel stressed, anxious, and depressed. Research from the United States in 2009, for instance, found the levels of the stress hormone cortisol were higher in mothers whose environment was cluttered. A chronically cluttered home can lead to a constant low-grade fight or flight response, taxing our resources designed for survival. This response can trigger physical and psychological changes that affect how we fight bugs and digest food, as well as leaving us at greater risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And surprisingly, it doesn't go away when we finally get to bed. People who sleep in cluttered rooms are more likely to have sleep problems, including difficulty falling asleep and being disturbed during the night. I gotta say, I totally agree, especially with that last one. I feel like when I have slept in a bedroom that is totally cluttered with clothes everywhere, I get overwhelmed and I'm more restless at night. And just in general, I know what it feels like when my space feels cluttered. I'm just more stressed, which leads me to my fifth and final concept, which is that clutter can impact our relationships. On a personal level, I know I have more little miscommunications or even a shorter fuse when my space is cluttered. Think one time my husband was like, Aylin, right now you're either hungry or you're stressed out about the mess. I can tell. But it's a good reminder, so often my mood is dependent on whether I'm well fueled, well slept, but also how messy my space is. I'm just going to read one more quote from that article that, again, I'll link below. A 2016 US study found background clutter resulted in participants being less able to correctly interpret the emotional expressions on the faces of characters in a movie. So that is probably a weirdly specific example of it, but it showed that clutter affects how we interpret facial expressions. And I don't know exactly why, but I wonder if it's because sometimes when there's clutter around, there's low grade anxiety or distraction. And so it's harder to focus on what's happening around you. And it's harder to communicate as well with the people that are close to you. So I think that's just another reminder that minimizing, that decluttering can make a real impact on your quality of life. Anyway, that's most of what I've got for you today. But if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It's a great way to support the channel. So if you'd just take a moment to click that button, I'd really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button below. And thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.